Hello and welcome to this FPL Game Week 35 AI team reveal video with me, Holly Shandon. It's a very exciting week because the wildcard is active, bench boost planned for Game Week 37, so lots to think about in terms of attacking the final 4 game weeks of the season. Make sure you've hit the like button, let's get into it. Looking at predicted points for players then by position over the final 4 game weeks of the season, we've had to reduce the pool of weeks that we look at because we only have those 4 game weeks remaining. And with Chelsea and Spurs having a maximum of 6 fixtures, it is Petrovic and Vicario that remain in those top 2 spots. Edison is in 3rd place. Dubravka, the cheap option for a double game week goalkeeper for game week 37, but Nick Pope is back in training. Eddie Howe let us know that in his Newcastle United press conference this morning. So there is an element of risk there. David Raya makes the top 10 in 7th place despite having no doubles left. Arsenal have kept 5 clean sheets in their last 6 games, which is pretty sensational. There's some tight calls to make on who you go for your main goalkeeper on wildcard, who you go for the backup slot. There's a few names in the frame there. Maybe funds will ultimately be the decider. Moving on to defenders then, and Chelsea assets are ranking quite highly. There's question marks over the fitness of Malo Gusto though, and Ben Chilwell, again, we haven't seen a lot from him recently, but he's a player that carries a lot of potential if he can get those minutes under his belt. Ake returned for Manchester City against Brighton in game week 34. He's immediately up to 2nd ahead of Vardiol and Walker, who were also in the top 10. Lewis Dunk in 4th place is an interesting option with double game week 37 in mind. And if you want a budget route into the Spurs defence, Ben Davies, 4.3 million, set to deputise for Destiny Udogie, who has undergone surgery and will miss the rest of the season. 19.2 predicted points for Davis over the next 4 game weeks. Beats Romero, who sits in 10th place. Interestingly, the Liverpool fullbacks Robertson and Trent both make this top 10 despite only having 4 fixtures remaining. It's Robertson who's been taking more corners, even with Trent returning from injury, but Trent did score a spectacular free kick against Fulham last week. So plenty of attacking potential from these guys. I don't know what I think to Liverpool's defence right now though. Into the midfield then, and we are quite literally spoilt for choice. I mean, the standout has to be Son, who remains out of position as a striker, listed as a midfielder. Spurs captain talisman on pens as well. 35.4 predicted points over the next 4 game weeks for him puts him as the top predicted player overall and a key transfer target for this week. Palmer not far behind him, despite being flagged for game week 35, which at the moment is hurting his AI predictions. He's still currently good enough for 2nd. And if you're tempted by a City midfielder, most managers going with Foden on wildcard, but De Bruyne is predicted to outscore Foden by 3.4 points over the remaining 4 game weeks. That's an interesting one. Even more interesting is to see Salah in 4th place, despite scoring just 2 goals since the international break, but his underlying numbers remain good for shot volumes, expected goals and big chances. He's a player who is not generally out of form for long, although it's been a bit unprecedented having that significant injury that he sustained earlier this calendar year. However, you would imagine that his return to form shouldn't be too far away if you look at his underlying numbers, which begs the question, should you keep him or should you sell him? A lot easier on wildcard to restructure your squad and spread those Salah funds around. Spurs midfielders, aside from Son, while Johnson is in 5th place ahead of Maddison in 6th place. Maddison, as it looks, not really justifying the extra 2 million outlay over his teammate right now. Johnson, the top performing Spurs player since the international break, interestingly. And then we've got Fernandes, Gordon, who make 8th and 9th place. There's quite a few names ahead of them. Maybe this will change once we've got the extra double fixtures out of the way for Spurs and Chelsea. But Fernandes in fine form, as is Gordon, who's got some lovely fixtures, and his home form form in particular pretty prevalent. Sheffield United at home this week. Don't overlook those guys that just creep in. We could literally pick 10 midfielders right now in FPL, but we can only have 5. Moving on to forwards then, and despite just 5 fixtures and flagged with injury, Haaland still tops the rankings here. He's easier to include on Wildcard because if you're planning for a bench boost, you can probably build a great front 8, and Haaland basically will solve a benching dilemma if he is going to be an injury risk again going into game week 35. And then it's pretty telling who else you should go with. Haaland and Isaac way ahead of the rest of the pack in terms of these predictions. No doubles remaining for Watkins and Solanke, who are both in the Golden Boot race. And I think in some cases, if you've not got a wild card to play, there's the potential to hold on to those names in the frame. However, on wildcard, I don't think there's going to be any room. Nicholas Jackson did manage to avoid his 10th yellow card of the season against Arsenal. Now the threshold has increased, so he's not in jeopardy of being banned. However, his finishing does need to improve for him to get anywhere near his points prediction. In the case of Isaac, just be aware that teammate Callum Wilson did get some minutes from the bench for Newcastle United in midweek, and that could curtail Isaac's minutes. He's been in red hot form. He's managed to stay fit. He has been playing 90 minutes with a lack of options, but is that going to have an impact on the Magpies' attack going into the final 5 games of their season? Let's have a look then at how the AI team has been getting on, and like most managers that have been building towards wildcard 35, bench boost 37 with no free hit left, it was a big red arrow this week, although not as bad as some. Down 35k places, still comfortably in the top 200k, and the ranks are quite bunched around here. I think with the chips remaining, we can easily hop back into that top 100k. We did have some key players that returned that really helped us. Mitchell came in for Moreno, and that certainly helped with a clean sheet for him in the second game for Crystal Palace. We also had Ben White and his 26-pointer. Where did that come from? That was a nice one. Gabriel also with a double clean sheet that helped, and Saka contributed as well. Plenty of points from the Arsenal trio. We didn't have triple Liverpool, but it didn't matter given their key assets blanked. Eze, again, some important points from him, a 14-point return. Solanke with an 8-pointer as well. And we had Rayan Ait-Nouri and Cameron Archer auto sub for Haaland and Palmer, who both missed out. At least we had some points to come off because some managers didn't really get anything in that instance. So not too bad a week, and certainly in a strong position to attack the final 4 game weeks of the season. When it comes to transfers then, the wildcard is active. This video coming a little bit later than normal because I've been waiting for the AI best wildcard team to update, and luckily we are 0.1 million spare to afford it. It's predicted to score 91 points this week with a game week rating of 96%. So let's have a look at it. Goalkeepers then, and Chelsea's Petrovic is going to get the nod between the sticks, with it being quite problematic nailing down a Chelsea defender. Dubravka, the deputy. Nick Pope could get some minutes before the end of the season, but look at that fixture list for Newcastle United. Sheffield United at home this week, Burnley away next week. I'm expecting quite a few points on the bench for this wildcard team, but that's always the case when you're building towards a later bench boost. Moving into the defence, and Ben Davies certainly unlocks funds spent big in the attack at 4.3 million with his double. He'll be able to drop to the bench in subsequent weeks. Gabriel retains his space, as does Ben White, who is benched for the North London derby. Dalot comes in for Burnley at home, 4.1 predicted points for him. And we've also got the budget Van Heck on the bench for Bournemouth away. White is a little bit of a luxury, but he will be quite a crucial player for us in game week 36. Whether the double Arsenal defence lasts for the bench boost in game week 37. Let's see what the AI transfers say for that. But certainly a strong looking defence with a blend of form, fixtures and budget picks. Moving into the attack, and it's Heung-min Son who headlines a stacked midfield in what is going to be a 3-5-2 formation for game week 35. Johnson joins him for a nice triple up on Spurs for their double game week. And we've also got Cole Palmer in there. Hopefully he's recovered from illness to make the squad. And De Bruyne comes in over Foden. We have enough funds for him, with Gordon taking the 5th place in the midfield, squeezing out Fernandes. Budget had to dictate there, but Gordon for Sheffield United at home, given his form at St James's Park, that's going to be a nice one. And to be fair, De Bruyne in away games has been pretty sensational as well. So let's see what points those two can produce. And then up front, Haaland's on the bench, and it's the traditional front line that most managers are picking on their wildcard this week, with Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea. Got to play the fixtures there for him and Alexander Isak. A double up on that Newcastle United defence for that nice home fixture. And it's pretty exciting this time. We've got 13 players that double in 37. We've got 2 Arsenal defenders we're going to use in 36. It'll be interesting to see whether they keep their place on the bench boost in 37 for Manchester United away. When it comes to captaincy, it was Palmer that was leading the predictions at the very start of this week before that illness flag came. We're at the moment on Son captain, Jackson vice, but if Palmer is declared fully fit and loses his yellow flag before the deadline, then it'd probably be Palmer captain and Son vice captain. Very tricky call for a lot of managers between those two this week. I think the injury flag will send the AI in one direction on this one. I will be locking in the final team on Friday, 4 o'clock, once we've got all the press conference news. So check out the article on the website using the link in the description to this video with a 7-day free trial. Make sure you've liked this one. Thank you for watching.